Hello, hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. Happy Friday. Today is a good day. I hope you've had a good Friday. Spent my time all cozied up at home because we've had snow again. Thankfully, it's melting, so I'm hoping, things will go back to normal over the week. But I hope everybody is doing well today. We are back with our Cozy Friday segment of Welsh folklore. Once I've finished the Welsh folklore with you guys, I will be researching other countries' folklore for you guys, which will be amazing. Can't wait to do that. If you have any suggestions of which countries you'd like me to cover next time, do let me know. Like that. Yes. I finally fixed my my throne overlay as well, so that's good. I was like, it wasn't working last time. But we're covering some witches this time. Fun. Oh my. We're going to the Llandona witches. So yeah, for anyone new joining, you might hear a few confusing words. With it being Welsh and stuff. Some aspects it will have translations if it's a text piece I'm reading. But Llandona is like a place. A lot of places in Wales start with the double L sound, which is the hl sound, which is nice. I like to try and teach you guys stuff. Not too bad. He is nearly finished. But yeah. So, the Llandona witches. So there is a tradition in the parish of Llandona in Anglesey that these witches, with their husbands, had been expelled from their native country, wherever that was, for practicing witchcraft. They were sent adrift, it is said, in a boat without rudder or oars, and left in this state to the mercy of the wind and the wave. Hi, Basic! You're not late, sweetheart. I'm just starting. How are you, honey? I hope your day was great. When they were first discovered approaching the Anglesey shore, the Welsh tried to drive them back into the sea. And even after they had landed, they were confined to the beach. The strangers, dead almost from thirst and hunger, commanded a spring of pure water to burst forth on the sands. This well remains to our days. This miracle decided their fate. The strangers were allowed, consequently, to land. But as they still practiced their evil arts, the parish became associated with their name, and hence the witches of Llandona was a term generally applied to the female portion of that parish, though in reality it belonged to one family only within its boundaries. I'm okay. I didn't get a notification. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I'm having a good day. I'm good. Just enjoying a nice chill stream today. This is my folklore streams I do every Friday. We're getting through the Welsh folklore. There's still a lot to cover. But I'll be tackling other countries and things like that later down the line. So I might do Ireland and Scotland and a bit of England as well to cover the rest of the UK after I've done all of Wales. The men lived by smuggling and the women by begging and cursing. It was impossible to overcome these daring smugglers, for in their neckerchief was a fly, which, the moment the knot of their cravats was undone, flew right at the eye of their opponents and blinded them. But before this last remedy was resorted to, the men fought like lions, and only when their strength failed them did they release their familiar spirit, the fly, to strike with blindness the defenders of the law. Make money by cursing. Paolo, my favorite jelly! How are you, darling? Lovely to see you, sweetie. The above-mentioned tradition of the coming of these witches to Anglesey is still current in the parish of Llandona, which is situated on the north coast of Anglesey. It was thought that the witching power belonged to families and descended from mothers to daughters. This was supposed to be the case with the witches of Llandona. This family obtained a bad report throughout the land. The women with dishevelled hair and bared breasts visited farmhouses and requested charity, more as a right than a favour, and no one dared refuse them. Llandona witches is a name that is not likely soon to die. Taking advantage of the credulity of the people, they cursed those whom they disliked, and many were endeavours to encounter their maledictions. The following is one of their curses uttered at I'r Binon o Oca, a well in the parish in Llandona, on a man who had offended one of these witches. Oh, thank you for the flower, Paolo. Got to see Papa Jelly for the week. Oh, I hope Papa Jelly is doing very well. I hope Papa is doing very well, honey. It was really nice you got to go see him. I hope you're taking good care of yourself too. Yeah, we're streaming for all proceeds for my stream support is going towards my new PNGs and Live 2D funds. So baby steps. Oh, your last cheer is still on my my board, Paolo. Your streams are basically mental health treatment for us. Oh my god, that means so much to me, Paolo. I'm really glad I'm making your day and I can make you smile. That really means a lot to me. Oh, you'll make me tear up. That's really sweet. Thank you. So pre-warning, this curse will be said in Welsh first, and then it'll have the English translation underneath. So please don't get confused if you haven't heard me speak Welsh before. I know Basic is new to my Welsh folklore streams. But we've... Oh my god. That was like a frog in my throat. I am ready for this. Thank you, Basic. So, Crudo Uboddo am oesedd lawer ac yn mhob cam camfa, yn mhob camfa codwym, yn mhob codwym torri asgwrn, nid i'r asgwrn mwyaf na'r lleif, ond asgwrn gwyl corn ei ydw bob tro. The English is as follows, but the alliteration and rhythm of the Welsh do not appear in the translation. So may he wander for ages many, and at every step a stile, at every stile a fall, at every fall a broken bone. Not the largest nor the least bone, but the chief neck bone every time. Oh my god, that's essentially a curse that says you gotta break your neck. Oh my god. This curse seems to be a common imprecation, possibly belonging to this family. Such was the terror of the Llandona witches that if any of them made a bid for a pig or anything else in fair or market, no one else dared bid against them, for it was believed that they would witch the animal thus bought. There were also celebrated witches at Denby. Bella Fawr, which is called Big Bella, was one of the last and most famous of her tribe in that town, and many other places were credited with possessing persons endowed with watching powers, as well as those who could break spells. The following tales of the doings of witches will throw light upon the matter under consideration. Oh dear. You know when you get the little bit in the back of your throat that just doesn't want to clear? Like, that's happening today. And I've just finished a cup of tea. Oh, I drink way too much tea. That's what the water is. Paolo, what is water? I don't drink water. I drink tea, I drink coffee, and I drink pop. I don't really drink much water. I should start though. It just doesn't have a nice taste. I know, shocker. I'm 30 years old and I'm like, I don't like drinking water. No. I'm enjoying the music too. A little ADD head's like, da-da. Water is like 75% of our culture. I know, but Paolo, I don't want to eat you or drink you. Like, you know, that's like if I stick a straw in you. Oh my god, I forgot to tell you the other day, Paolo. Like, my partner, Limp, made a comment to me the other day. We were talking about jellyfish. And I showed him a jellyfish of your jellyfish. Like, the one you're modeled after. And he goes, I just want to stick a straw in it and, like, suck it. And I was like, what the hell? You don't do that to jellyfish. I mean, we wouldn't complain. Of course you wouldn't, no. I mean, there is art of us, like, together now. Like, you're in a little aquarium for me to keep all to myself. So, yeah. So, witches transforming themselves into cats. I'll make sure to get, like, a glass of water at break time. Just so I can appease everybody. It's like, drink your water, Nozomi. So, one of the forms that witches were supposed to change themselves into was that of a cat. In this metamorphosed state, they were the more able to accomplish their designs. The following tale, illustrative of this belief, was told to me by the Reverend R. Jones, rector of Llanasil in Bala. You need proper hydration. I know. I'm sorry. It should be a thing. It's like, nah. Next, I'll do it free once. Next time, people can pay me to drink water. I don't like the taste of it. I'd be a lot healthier if I drank more water. On the side of the old road between Ceredigion and Betws-y-Coed, long before the latter place had become the resort of artists, stood an inn which was much resorted to, as it was a convenient lodging house for travellers on their way to Ireland. This inn stood near the present village of Betws-y-Coed. Many robberies occurred here. Travellers who put up there for the night were continually deprived of their money, and no one could tell how this occurred, for the lodgers were certain that no one had entered their rooms, as they were found locked in the morning just as they were the night before. The mystery was therefore great. By and by, one of those who had lost his money consulted Hugh Llwyd, who lived in Cynfeil, in the parish of Festiniog, and he promised to unravel the mystery. Now, Hugh Llwyd had been an officer in the army and, equipped in his regimentals, with sword dangling by his side, he presented himself one evening at the suspected inn, and asked whether he could obtain a room and a bed for the night. He represented himself as on his way to Ireland, and he found no difficulty in obtaining a night's lodging. The inn was kept by two sisters of prepossessing appearance, and the traveller made himself most agreeable to these ladies, and entertained them with tales of his travels in foreign parts. On retiring for the night, he stated that it was a habit with him. Oh my Jesus, the fucking sounds! Oh my god, did you? No way! Thank you for contributing! Thank you! Oh my god, thank you, Paolo. That scared me. Oh, thank you for contributing £25 to that. Oh, thank you. That's gonna help with some of my Nintendo Switch streams. The sound scares me. I'm never prepared for that. Thank you, honey. I really appreciate it. The noises. I'm never prepared for all the noises. I get jump scared very easily. Aw, you're so precious, Paolo. Thank you, darling. Oh my god. Oh, my heart just went, what the fuck? On retiring for the night, he stated that it was habit with him to burn light in his room all night, and he was supplied with a sufficient quantity of candles to last through the night. The request as Hugh Llwyd was a military man did not arouse suspicion. Hugh retired and made his arrangements for the night of watching. He placed his clothes on the floor within easy reach of his bed, and his sword unsheathed lay on the bed close to his right hand. He had secured the door, and now as the night drew on, he was all attention. Here Long Two Cats stealthily came down the partition between his room and the next to it. Hugh feigned sleep. The cats frisked here and there in the room, but the sleeper awoke not. They chased each other around about the room and played and romped, and at last they approached Hugh's clothes and played with them. And here they seemed to get their greatest amusement. They turned the clothes about and over, placing their paws now on that string and now on that button, and ere long their paws were inserted into the pockets of his clothes. And just as one of the cats had her paw in the pocket that contained Hugh Clude's purse, he like lightning struck the cat's paw with his sword. With terrible screams they both disappeared, and nothing further was seen of them during the night. The next morning only one of the sisters appeared at the breakfast table. To the traveller's inquiry after the absent lady of the house, her sister said that she was slightly indisposed, could not appear. Hugh Clude expressed regret at this, but said he, "I must say goodbye to her, for I greatly enjoyed our company last night." He would not be refused, so ultimately he was admitted to her presence. After expressing his sympathy and regret at her illness, the soldier held out his hand to bid goodbye to the lady. She put out her left hand. This Hugh refused to take, averring that he had never taken a left hand in his life, and that he would not do so now. Very reluctantly and with evident pain, she put out her right hand, which was bandaged, and this fact cleared up the mystery connected with the robberies. These two ladies were two witches, who in the form of cats had robbed travellers who lodged under their roof. Hugh, when he made this discovery, said, "I am Hugh Clude of Cunvale, and I warn you of the risk you have incurred by your thefts, and I promise you I will not let you off so easily the next time I have need to visit you." The preceding tale is circumstantial, but unfortunately similar tales occurring in other places, as shown by the following quotation. The last instance of national credulity on this head was the story of the witches from Thurso, who, tormenting for a long time an honest fellow under the usual form of a cat, at last provoked him so that one night he put them to fight with his broadsword and cut off the leg of one less nimble than the rest. On his taking it up, to his amazement, he found it belonged to a female of his own species. The next morning discovered the owner, an old hag, with only the companion leg to this. From Brand's Popular Antiquities, pages 318 to 319. Oh dear. Yes. Honestly, you're too sweet to me, Paolo. I appreciate it. I fear what you'll do when my birthday rolls around this year. I've seen what you guys do at Christmas. It's terrifying. I still get little, like, memories of what happened at Christmas. Send you live jellies, of course. Oh my god! Have you seen how much those, like, jellyfish aquariums go for? They're expensive. I see them on TikTok all the time. They're, like, really expensive. I'm like, oh! Not if you catch them yourself. Like, I don't live quite close to a coast that has them around here. I know they have in some other UK coasts, some, like, moon jellies. But, like, I don't live up by the coast to get them. I think it's illegal, though, to catch them. Keep them. I don't know. So this is the witch's revenge on Hugh Clude. So they got revenge. Only if you get caught. Like, I am not a nimble person, Paolo. I would get caught. So, several months after the occurrence recorded above of Hugh Clude, when he had just started from his home one Sunday morning to go to his church to officiate there, for he was the parson of Llan Festiniog, He observed that the Bettersecoid ladies were approaching his house, and he perceived that their object was to witch him. He knew full well that as long as his back was turned towards them, he was in their power, but that when he faced them, they could do him no harm. So to avoid their evil influence and to frustrate their designs, he faced them, and walked backwards every step from Cunvale to the Llan, and in his way he escaped being injured by his female enemies. But this was not all. Hugh Llwyd knew that when he reached the church porch, he was beyond witchcraft's reach. Having arrived there, he shouted out, "I defy you now, and before I leave the church, I will make you that you can never even witch anyone." He was as good as his word, for by his skill in the black art, he deprived those two ladies, ere he left the church, of their power to witch people, and during the rest of their lives, they were like other women. Hugh Llwyd was born in 1533 and died in 1620. He was a clergyman, and it was generally believed that priests could counteract the evils of the enemy of mankind. The widespread belief of witches being able to transform themselves into animals is shown in the legends of many countries, and as in the case of fairy stories, the same tale, slightly changed, may be heard in various places. The possibility of injuring or marking the witch in her assumed form so deeply that the bruise remained a mark on her in her natural form was a common belief. A tale in certain points like the one recorded of Hugh Llwyd and the witches who turned themselves into cats is to be heard in many parts of Wales. It is as follows. I quote the main facts from my friend Mr. Hamer's account of Llanidlos, published in the Montgomeryshire Collections, Volume 10, pages 2, 4, 3. You enjoying yourself there, Basic? I'm hoping you're liking it. I feel I'm going to be coming down with a sore throat, normally. That time of year, colds are ripe. And I'm prone to sore throats because I have sensitive tonsils. So that's always fun. It sucks when that happens. We told you, water does wonders, and honey. I have honey. I will make sure I get myself some water and a cup of tea with some honey in it when I do break in like an hour? Yeah, about an hour. Yeah. I can hold off for an hour. I'm a good dragon. Right? I talk a lot to you guys. So like my entire streaming thing is like, yeah, I need my throat. I need my voice, you know? Oh my god. So a witch transformed into a hare, injured by one whom she tormented. An old woman thought to be a witch was said by a neighbour to be in the habit of visiting her nightly in the shape of a hare, and that in consequence she was deprived of her rest. The witch came to her bed as a hare and crossed it, and the tormented one was determined to put an end to this persecution. For this purpose she procured a hammer, which she placed under her pillow when she retired to rest. That night, the old witch, unaware of the reception awaiting her, paid her usual visit to her victim. But the instant she jumped on the bed, she received a stunning blow on the head, and, it need not be added, disappeared. Next morning, a friend of the persecuted woman, who was in the secret of the whole case, on some pretext paid the old woman, the supposed witch, a visit, and she was greatly astonished to find her laid up, suffering from a frightful black eye, which her visitor believed to be the result of the blow dealt her with the hammer on the previous night. Hammering hares, yo! So, a witch shot when in the form of a hare. The following tale was told to me by the Reverend R. Jones, rector of Llanyseel. An old woman was evicted from a small farm, which she and her family had held for many years. She was naturally greatly annoyed at such conduct on the part of the landlord, and of the person who supplanted her. However, She procured a small cottage close by her late home, and there she lived. But the interloper did not get on, for she was troubled by a hare that came nightly to her house. A labouring man, when going to his work early in the morning, time after time saw a hare going from the farm towards the cottage occupied by this old woman, and he determined to shoot this hare. He procured an old gun and loaded it with pebbles instead of shots, and awaited the approach of the hare. It came as usual, the man fired, and the hare rolled over and over, screaming and making a terrible noise. He, however, did not heed this much, for hares, when shot, do scream, and so he went to secure the hare. But when he attempted to seize it, it changed into all shapes and made horrible sounds, and the man was so terrified that he ran away, and he was very glad to get away from the scene of this shocking occurrence. In a few days afterwards, the old woman who occupied the cottage was found dead, and it was noticed by the woman who laid her out that her arm and shoulder were riddled with pebbles. It was thought... Oh my Jesus Christ! Scared the hell out of me! Oh, thank you for the dragon roar, Paolo. Oh, I should always be wary when Paolo's around, because I get notifications for all sorts of things. Oh my god. It was thought that she was a witch, and that she had troubled the people who had deprived her of her farm, and that she did so in the shape of a hare, and no one doubted that the injury inflicted on the old woman was anything more than a shot of the man, who supposed that he had killed a hare, when in reality he shot and killed the old woman. The farmer was never troubled after the death of the woman whom he had supplanted. Many variants of this tale are still extant. The parish clerk of Llangadvan, jellies, a mountainous parish in Montgomeryshire, gave me one which he located in Nant Ia Era. But as it is in the main points much like the preceding, I will not relate it. I like the jellies. I forgot I put that dragon roar up there. Oh my god. They're fun, guys. Yeah. I do love my jellies. Some people think, oh, they're like, oh, are you a jellyfish? No, I am a dragon who loves jellyfish. We heard your notification comment and took it as a challenge. Honestly, like, yeah, you know, go nuts. I give you full gremlin energy. I don't mind. I really appreciate the support you give me. It means a lot to me. I just hope I don't cry again. Like last time I got like hype trains and stuff like that. Oh, do you like my love, Paolo? I love that gif. Always makes my day. Like, yes. That gif always makes my day. I'm like, yeah. Amazing. We always accept your love. Oh, I'm happy you like it. It means a lot to me. Oh, you're very precious. A witch in the form of a hare in a churn. Okay. So in the Spectator, number 117 are these words. If the dairy maid does not make her butter come so soon as she would have it, Moll White, a supposed witch, is at the bottom of the churn. Until very lately, I had thought that the milk only was considered bewitched if it could not be churned, and not that the witch herself was at the bottom of the churn. But I had been disabused of this false notion, for the rector of Llanyseel told me the following story, which was told him by his servant girl, who figures in the tale. When the girl was servant at Drws y Nant near Dolgelly, one day the milk would not churn. They worked a long time at it and to no purpose. The girl thought that she had heard something knocking up and down the churn and splashing about. She told her master there was something in the churn, but he would not believe her. However, they removed the lid and out jumped a large hare and ran away through the open door. And this explained all difficulties, and proved that the milk was bewitched, and that the witch herself was in the churn in the shape of a hare. The girl affirmed that she had seen the hare with her own eyes. As the hare was thought to be a form assumed by witches, it was impossible for ordinary beings to know whether they saw a hare or a witch in the form of a hare. When the latter animal appeared and ran before them along the road, consequently the hare, as well as the witch or good evil, an instance of this confusion of ideas was related to the writer lately by Mr. Richard Jones Tinnerwern from Brunegluce. I'm enjoying the music a lot as well. So, a hare crossing the road. So Mr. kind of bopping. It is! All royalty free as well, so I was like, yes. Trying to find like good music I could have put on. It's like, you know, royalty free is a pain, but I got it done. I'm always finding new ones that I can add to it. I even have like some Christmas jingles in there. Like I merged all the ones I had from like fantasy, romance, and like festive ones. I just sort of melded them into like one big playlist for my folklore streams. Oh, you're still on the little board up here as well for the biddies on my screen. And we had Winter Chica follow yesterday. Oh, that's really. We had some gifted subs yesterday, which was fun. So Mr. Jones said that when he was a lad, he and his mother went to Caerwys Fair from the Vale of Clwyd, intending to sell a cow at the fair. They had not gone far on their way before a large hare crossed the road, hopping and halting and looking around. His mother was vexed at the sight, and she said, "We may as well go home, Dick, for no good will come of our journey since that old witch crosses our path." They went on, though, and reached Caerwys in safety, but they got no bid for the cow, although they stayed there all day long. Oh, you should have gone home. So this one is a witch in the form of a hare hunted by a black greyhound. The writer has heard variants of the following tale in several parts of Wales. An old woman, credited to be a witch, lived on the confines of the hills in a small hut in South Carnarvonshire. Her grandson, a sharp, intelligent lad, lived with her. Many gentlemen came to that part with greyhounds for the purpose of coursing, and the lad's services were always in requisition, for he never failed in starting a hare, and whenever he did so he was rewarded with a shilling. But it was noticed that the greyhounds never caught the hare which the lad started. The sport was always good, the race long and exciting, but the hare never failed to elude her pursuers. Scores of times this occurred, until at last the sportsman consulted a wise man, who gave as his option, this was no ordinary hare, but a witch, and, said he, she can never be caught but by a black greyhound. A dog of this colour was sought for far and near, and at last found and bought. Away to the hills the coursers went, believing that now the hare was theirs. They called at the cottage for the lad to accompany them and start the prey. He was as ready as ever to lead them to their sport. The hare was soon started, and off the dog was slipped and started after it, and the hare bounded away as usual, but it is now seen that her pursuer is a match for her in swiftness, and notwithstanding the twistings and winding, the dog was soon close behind the distressed hare. The race became more and more exciting. The hound and hare exerted themselves to their very utmost, and the chase became hot and still hotter. The spectators shouted in their excitement, "Hey, see do!" So, "Hi, black dog," for it was seen that he was gaining on his victim. "Hey, mam goo!" "Hey, grandmother dear," shouted the lad, forgetting in his trouble that his grandmother was in the form of a hare. His was the only encouraging voice uttered on behalf of the poor hunted hare. His single voice was hardly heard amidst the shouts of the many. The pursuit was long and hard. Dog and hare gave signs of distress, but shouts of encouragement buoyed up the strength of the dog. The chase was evidently coming to a close, and the hare was approaching the spot whence it started. One single heart was filled with dread and dismay at the failing strength of the hare, and from that heart came the words, "Hey, mam goo!" "Hi, grandmother dear!" All followed the chase, which was now nearing the old woman's cottage, the window of which was open. With a bound, the hare jumped through the small casement into the cottage, but the black dog was close behind her, and just as she was disappearing through the window, he bit the hare and retained a piece of her skin in his mouth, but he could not follow the hare into the cottage, as the aperture was too small. The sportsmen lost no time in getting to the cottage, but after much searching they failed to discover Puss. They, however, saw the old woman seated by the fire spinning. They also noticed that there was blood trickling from underneath her seat, and this they considered sufficient proof that it was the witch in the form of a hare that had been coursed and had been bitten by the dog just as she bounded into the cottage. "Oh no, why you gotta chase Grandma?" It was believed in England, as well as in Wales, that witches were often hunted in the shapes of hares. Thus, in the Spectator number 117, these words occur. "If a hare makes an unexpected escape from the hounds, the huntsman curses Moll White, witch. Nay, says Sir Roger, I have known the master of the pack, upon such an occasion, send one of his servants to see if Moll White had been out that morning." In Yorkshire Legends and Traditions, page 160, is a tale very much like this one, like the one which is given above. It is as follows. There was a hare which baffled all the greyhounds that were slipped at her. They seemed to have no more chance with her than if they coursed the wind. There was, at the time, a noted witch residing near, and her advice was asked about this wonderful hare. She seemed to have little to say about it, however, only she thought they had better let it be. But, above all, they must take care how they slipped a black dog at it. Nevertheless, either from recklessness or from defiance, the party did go out coursing soon after with a black dog. The dog was slipped, and they perceived at once that Puss was at a disadvantage. She made as soon as possible for a stone wall, and endeavoured to escape through a sheep hole at the bottom. Just as she reached this hole, the dog threw himself upon her and caught her in the haunch, but was unable to hold her. She got through and was seen no more. The sportsman, either in bravado or from terror of the consequences, went straight to the house of the witch to inform her of what had happened. They found her in bed hurt, she said, by a fall, but the wound looked very much as if it had been produced by the teeth of a dog, and it was on a part of the woman corresponding to that by which the hare had been seized by the black hound before their eyes. Oh my goodness. Gotta be mean to the hares. That sucks. So, early reference to witches turning themselves into hares. We like hares in Wales, apparently. You know. A lot of people get confused about our Welsh rarebit meal, which is basically cheese on toast. The prevalence of this belief that witches could transform themselves into hares is seen from a remark made by Giraldus Cambrensis in his topography of Ireland. He writes, "It has also been a frequent complaint from old times as well as in the present, that certain hags in Wales, as well as in Ireland and Scotland, change themselves into the shape of hares, that, sucking teats under this counterfeit, they might stealthily rob other people's milk." Giraldus Cambrensis, Bond's edition, page 83. This remark of the Archdeacon's gives a respectable antiquity to the metamorphosis of witches, for it was in 1185 that he visited Ireland, and he tells us that what he records had descended from old times. The transformation fables that have descended to us would seem to be fossils of the pagan faith once common to the Celtic and other cognate races. It was not thought that certain harmless animals only could become the temporary abode of human beings. Even a wolf could be human under an animal form. Thus, Giraldus Cambrensis records that a priest was addressed in Ireland by a wolf, and induced to administer the consolations of his priestly office to his wife, who, also, under the shape of a she-wolf, was apparently at the point of death, and to convince the priest that she was really a human being, the he-wolf, her husband, tore off the skin of the she-wolf from the head down to the navel, folding it back, and she immediately presented the form of an old woman to the astonished priest. These people were changed into wolves through the curse of one Natalis, saint and abbot, who compelled them every 7 years to put on the human form and depart from the dwellings of men, and as a punishment for their sins. You can see Giraldus Cambrensis, Bond's edition, pages 79 to 80. Ah. Oh my god. And we get to Ceridwen and Gwion, known as Gwion, Bach's transformation. But a striking instance of rapid transition from one form to another is given in the Mabinogion. The fable of Ceridwen's cauldron is as follows. Ceridwen was the wife of Tegid Vol. They had a son named Morfran and a daughter named, oh god, that name, Rhewi. And she was the most beautiful girl in the world. And they had another son named Avagddu, the ugliest man in the world. Ceridwen, seeing that he should not be received amongst gentlemen because of his ugliness, unless he should be possessed by some excellent knowledge or strength, ordered a cauldron to be boiled of knowledge and inspiration for her son. The cauldron was to be boiled unceasingly for 1 year and a day, until there should be in it 3 blessed drops of the Spirit's grace. These 3 drops fell on the finger of Gwion Bach of Llanfair Carinion in Powys, whom she ordered to attend the cauldron. The drops were so hot that Gwion Bach put her finger in to his mouth. No sooner done than he came to know all things. Now he transformed himself into a hare, and ran away from the wrath of Ceridwen. She also transformed herself into a greyhound, went after him to the side of a river. Gwion, on this, jumped into the river and transformed himself into a fish. She also transformed herself into an otter bitch, and chased him under the water until he was fain to turn himself into a bird of the air. She, as a hawk, followed him, and gave him no rest in the sky. And just as she was about to swoop upon him, and he was in fear of death, he espied a heap of winnowed wheat on the floor of a barn, and he dropped among the wheat and buried himself into one of the grains. Then she transformed herself into a high crestled black hen, and went to the wheat and scratched with her feet, and found him and swallowed him. The tale of Ceridwen whose fame was such that she can, without exaggeration, be styled the goddess of witches, resembles in part the chase of the witch hare by the black dog, and probably her story gave rise to many tales of transformations. I now come to another kind of transformation. It was believed by the aged in Wales that witches could not only turn themselves into hares, but that by incantation they could change other people into animals. My friend, the Reverend T. Lloyd Williams in Wrexham, lodged whilst he was at Ystrad Moerig School with a Mrs. Jones, Dolfawr, who was a firm believer in Rebo, or Hrebo, or witching. And this lady told my friend the following tales of Betty a Bont, a celebrated witch in those parts. A man turned into a hare. One of the servant men at Dolfawr, some years before Mr. Williams lodged there, laughed at Betty a Bont's supposed power. However, he lived to repent his folly. One night after he'd gone to bed, he found out that he had been changed into a hare, and to his dismay and horror, he saw a couple of greyhounds slipped upon him. He ran for bare life and managed to elude his pursuers, and in a terrible plight and fright he ran to Dolfawr and to his bed. This kind of transformation he ever afterwards was subjected to, until by spells he was released from the witch's power over him. Don't mock witches. Get turned into a hare. Or even worse, a horse. A man changed into a horse. So Mr. Williams writes of the same servant man who figures in the preceding tale. However, after that, she, Betty a Bont, turned him into a grey mare, saddled him, and actually rode him herself. And when he awoke in the morning, he was in a bath of perspiration, and positively declared that he had been galloping all night. Singularly enough, Giraldus Cambrensis mentions the same kind of transformation. His words are, "I myself, at the time I was in Italy, heard it said of some districts in those parts, that there the stable women, who had learnt magical arts, were wont to give something to travellers in their cheese, which transformed them into beasts of burden, so that they carried all sorts of burdens, and after they had performed their tasks, resumed their own forms." In Bond's edition, page 83. From Brand's Popular Antiquities, pages 225, I find that a common name for nightmare was witch riding, and the nightmare, he tells us, was a spectre of the night which seized men in their sleep and suddenly deprived them of speech, motion. And he quotes from Ray's collection of proverbs, "Go in God's name, so ride no witches." I will now leave this subject with the remark that people separated by distance are often brought together by their superstitions, and probably these beliefs imply a common origin of the people amongst whom these myths prevail. The following tales show how baneful the belief in witchcraft was, but nevertheless there was some good even in such superstitions, for people were induced through fear of being witched to be charitable. Ooh. So this one is a witch who turned a blue dye into a red dye. An old hag went to a small farmhouse in Clocaenog parish and found the farmer's wife occupied in dyeing wool blue. She begged for a little wool and blue dye. She was informed by the missus that she was really very sorry that she could not part with either, as she had only just barely enough for her own use. The hag departed and the woman went on with her dyeing. But to her surprise, the wool came out of the pot dyed red instead of blue. She thought that possibly it was the dye that was to blame, and so she gave up for the night her employment, and the next day she went to Ruthin for a fresh supply of blue to finish her work. But again she failed to dye the wool blue, for red and not blue was the result of her dyeing. She, in surprise, told a neighbour of her unaccountable failure to dye her wool blue. This neighbour asked her if she had been visited by anyone, and she in answer told her that old so-and-so had been at her house begging. "Ah," was the response, "I see how it is. You can never dye that wool blue. You've been witched. Send the red wool and the part that you have not touched here to me, and I will finish the work for you." This was done, and the same colour was used by both women, but now it became blue, whilst with the other it was red. This tale was told to me by a gentleman who does not wish his name to appear in print, as it would lead to the identification of the parties mentioned, and the descendants of the supposed witch, being respectable farmers, would rather that the tale of their canny grandmother were forgotten, but my informant vouches for the truth of the tale. Yep. A lot of people are still descendants. Witches. I think it's really cool. So there is a pig witched. A woman sold a pig at Beaumaris to a man called Dick Green. She could not that day sell any more, but the following market day she went again to Beaumaris. Dick was there waiting her appearance, and he told her that the pig he bought was bewitched, and she must come with him to undo the curse. Away the woman went with Dick, and when they came to the pig she said, "What am I to do now, Dick?" "Draw thy hand 7 times down his back," said Dick, "and say every time, Rad du Arnat ti, i.e. the blessing of God be on thee." The woman did so, and then Dick went for a physic for the pig. Recovered. A physic. Oh, physical. Okay. So milk that would not churn, and the steps taken to counteract the malice of the witch that had cursed the churn and its contents. They really like cursing milk. So before beginning this tale, it should be said that some witches were able to make void the curses of other witches. Bella of Denby, who lived in the early part of the present century, was one of these, and her renown extended over many countries. I may further add that my informant is the Reverend R. Jones, who I have often mentioned, who is a native of Llanrothin, the scene of the occurrences I am about to relate, and that he was at one time curate of Denby, so that he would be conversant with the story by hearsay, both as to its evil effects and its remedy. About the year 1815, an old woman, supposed to be a witch, lived in Frydd Ucha, Llanrothin, and she got her living by begging. One day she called at Tŷ Mawr, in the same parish, requesting a charity of milk. She was refused. The next time they churned, the milk would not turn to butter. They continued their labours for many hours, but at last they were compelled to desist in consequence of the unpleasant odour which proceeded from the churn. The milk was thrown away, and the farmer John Griffiths, divining that the milk had been witched by the woman who had been begging at their house, went to consult a conjurer who lived near Pwllheli. This man told him he was to put a red-hot crowbar in the milk the next time they churned. This was done, and the milk was successfully churned. For several weeks the crowbar served as an antidote, but at last it failed, and again the milk could not be churned, and the unpleasant smell made it again impossible for anyone to stand near the churn. Griffiths, as before, consulted the Pwllheli conjurer, who gave him a charm to place underneath the churn, stating when he did so that if it failed he could render no further assistance. The charm did not act, and the gentleman whom he next consulted advised him to go to Belle, or Bella, the Denby witch. Griffiths did so, and to his great surprise he found that Belle could describe the position of his house, and she knew the names of his fields. Her instructions were, gather all the cattle to Gors Goch field, a meadow in front of the house, and then she said that the farmer and a friend were to go to a certain holly tree, stand out of sight underneath this tree. To this day stands in the hedge that surrounds the meadow mentioned by Belle. This was to be done by night, and the farmer was told that he should then see the person who had injured them. The instructions were literally carried out. When the cows came to the field, they herded together in a frightened manner and commenced bellowing fearfully. In a very short time, who should enter the field but the suspected woman in evident bodily pain? And Griffiths and his friend heard her uttering some words unintelligible to them, and having done so she disappeared, and the cattle became quiet, and ever after they had no difficulty in churning the milk of those cows. Two following tales were told the writer by the Reverend T. Lloyd Williams in Wrexham. The scene of the stories was Cardiganshire, and Betty Aboyne was the witch. A witch who was refused a goose and her revenge. A witch called at a farm when they were feathered geese for sale, and she begged much for one. She was refused, but it would have been better, according to the tale, had her request been granted, for they could not afterwards rear geese on that farm. Another version of the preceding tale is that the same witch called at the farm when the family was seated at dinner partaking of a goose. She requested a taste, but was refused. When leaving the house door, she was heard to mutter, "Let there be no more geese at," and her curse became a fact. I'm noticing most of these witches just wanted food. Like, just feed them. They would have left you alone. A witch refused butter, and the consequence. An old hag called at a farm and begged the wife to sell her a pound of butter. This was refused, as they wanted to pot the butter. The witch went away, therefore, empty-handed. The next day, when the maid went to the field for the cows, she found them sitting like cats before a fire with their hind legs beneath them. I am indebted to my friend Mr. Lloyd Williams for this tale. A friend told me the following tale. A witch's revenge and her discomfiture. An old beggar woman was refused her requests by a farmer's wife, and it was noticed that she uttered words that might have been a threat when going away from the door, and it was also observed that she picked up a few straws from the yard and carried them away with her. In the course of a few days, a healthy calf died, and the death of several calves followed in rapid succession. These misfortunes caused the wife to remember the old woman who she had sent away from her door, and the farmer came to the conclusion that his cattle had been witched by this old woman. So he went to a conjurer, who told him to cut out the heart of the next calf that should die, and roast it before the fire, and then, after it had been properly roasted, he was to prick it all over with a fork, and if anyone should appear as a beggar, they were to give her what she asked. The instructions were carried out literally, and just as the heart was being pricked, the old woman who the wife had driven away came up to the house in a dreadful state, and rushing into the house said, "In the name of God, what are you doing here?" She was told that they were doing nothing particular, and while the conversation was being carried out, the pricking operation was discontinued, and the old hag became less excited. And then she asked the farmer kindly to give her a few potatoes, which he gladly did, and the old woman departed, and no more calves died after that. Tales of the kind relate above are extremely common, might be multiplied to almost any extent. It would seem that the evil influence of the witches was exerted not only at times when they were refused favours, but that at will they could accomplish mischief. Thus I have heard it said of an old woman locally supposed to be a witch, that her very presence was ominous of evil, and disaster followed wherever she went. If she were inclined to work evil, she was supposed to be able to do so, and that without any provocation. I will give one tale which I heard in Garth Bebo. This old hag's doing. Horse witched. Pedos Folk, a supposed witch, going through a field where people were employed at work, and just as she came opposite the horse, it fell down, as if it were dead. The workmen ran to the horse to ascertain what was the matter with it, but Pedus went along, not heeding what had occurred. This unfeeling conduct on her part roused the suspicion of the men, and they came to the conclusion that the old woman had witched the horse, and that she was the cause of its illness. They, therefore, determined to run after the woman and bring her back to undo her own evil work. Off they rushed after her and forced her back to the field, where the horse was still lying on the ground. They there compelled the old creature to say, standing over the horse, these words, "You are no vo, God be with him." This she did, and then she was allowed to go on her way. By and by the horse revived, and got upon his feet, and looked as well as ever, but this, it was thought, would not have been the case had not the witch undone her own curse. In Anglesey, as I was informed by my brother, the late Reverend Elijah Owen, vicar of Llangode, it was believed that witches made void their own curses of animals by saying over them, "Rhad du ar y da," the blessing of God be on the cattle. Cows and horses witched. The writer was told the name of the farm where the following events were said to have taken place, but he is not quite sure that his memory has not deceived him, so we will only relate the facts without giving them a locality. A farmer had a good mare that went mad. She foamed at the mouth, rushed about the stall, and died in great agony. But this was not all. His cows kept back their milk, and what they could extract from them stank, nor could they churn the milk, for it turned to froth. A conjurer was consulted, and the farmer was told that all this evil had been brought about by a witch who had been refused milk at his door, and her mischief was counteracted by the conjurer thus consulted. Occasionally we hear of injured persons retaliating upon the witches who had brought about their losses. This, however, was not often attempted, for people feared the consequences of a failure, but it was nevertheless supposed to be attainable. I will relate a few instances of this punishment of witches for their evil doings. If you think about it, most of those stories, they get witched because they basically just deny them like a little bit of milk or something, or food. There's probably some bad ones, no. So, witches punished. A neighbour who does not wish to have his name recorded states that he can vouch for the instance of the following tale. A farmer who lost much stock by death and suspected it was the work of an old hag who lived in his neighbourhood, consulted a conjurer about the matter, and he was told that his suspicions were correct, that his losses were brought about by this old woman, and, added the conjurer, "If you wish it, I can wreak vengeance on the wretch for what she has done to your cattle." The injured farmer was not averse to punishing the woman, but he did not wish her punishment to be over severe. And this he told the conjurer, but said he, "I should like her to be deprived of the power to injure anyone in the future." This was accomplished, my informant told me, for the witch woman took to her bed and became unable to move about from that very day to the end of her life. My informant stated that he had himself visited this old woman on her sick bed, and that she did not look ill, but was disinclined to get up. And the cause of it all was a matter of general gossip in the neighbourhood, that she had been cursed for her evil doings. Another tale I have heard is that a conjurer obliged a witch to jump from a certain rock into a river that ran at its feet, thus put an end to her life. Rough punishment was often inflicted upon these simple old women by silly people. The tales already given are sufficiently typical of the faith of the credulous regarding witches, and their ability to work out their evil desires on their victims. I will now proceed briefly to relate other matters connected with witchcraft as believed in all parts of Wales. So this covers how to break or protect people from a witch's spell. There are various ways of counteracting the evil brought upon people by witches. Number 1. The intervention of a priest or minister of religion. Oh, Jesus! Oh, thank you, babe! Thank you for subscribing! Oh, it means a lot. 4 months in a row! Thank you, babe! It means a lot to me. Please go check out Limp on Twitter. He likes me to say that sometimes. Thank you. Scared me. Notification scares me every time. I'm in my zone of reading and then it just scares me. I appreciate it, babe. Thank you. Yeah, go give Limp Clock a follow on Twitter if you want to. He likes me to promote his Twitter sometimes. Oh, I appreciate it, babe. Thank you. Oh my god, 4 months. You're on a 2-month streak. Thank you. That helps toward the goals. I appreciate it. Thank you. So the intervention of a priest or minister of religion made curses of non-effect. The following tale was told to me by my friend, the rector of, oh god, Ruddycroesau. When Mr. Jones was curate of Llanblodwell, a parishioner sent to ask the parson to come to see her. He went, but he could not make out what he had been sent for, as the woman was, to all appearance, in her usual health. Perceiving a strong-looking woman before him, he said, "I presume I have missed the house. A sick person wished to see me." The answer was, "You are quite right, sir. I sent for you. I am not well. I am troubled." In the course of conversation, Mr. Jones ascertained that the woman had sent for him to counteract the evil machinations of her enemy. "I am witched," she said, "and a person can break the spell." The clergyman argued with her, but all to no purpose. She affirmed that she was witched, and that a clergyman could withdraw the curse. Finding that the woman was obdurate, he read a chapter and offered up a prayer, and wishing the woman good day with a hearty "God bless you," departed. Upon a subsequent visit, he found the woman quite well, and he was informed by her to his astonishment that he had broken the spell. Number 2. Forcing the supposed witch to say over the cursed animals, "Rad du arada," God's blessing be on the cattle, or some such expressions freed them from spells. An instance of this kind is related on page 242 under the heading "A Horse Witched." Number 3. Reading the Bible over or to the bewitched freed them from evil. This was an antidote that would be exercised by anyone who could procure a Bible. In an essay written in Welsh, relating to the parishes of Garthbebo, Llangadfan, and Llanarveil, in 1863, I find the following. Gwyr arall fam wr mawr, a chando fwch yn sal ar y Sabbath, ar ôl roddi ffisig I ddau, hybywydd I bod yn mawr. Rydodd yn tai I ati nôl I fel a darllenodd benodd iddi, which rendered into English is another man, a large farmer, having a cow sick on the Sabbath day. After giving her physic, supposing she was dying, ran into the house to fetch the Bible and read a chapter to her. Number 4. A Bible kept in a house was a protection from all evil. This was a talisman, formerly only within the reach of the opulent. Quoting again from the essay above referred to, I find these words. Byddai am beth be bil, mewn ti mawr yn cael, I gadw mewn this neu gofr, a llaw arno gwag a gadw I rhag newydd. That is, a Bible was occasionally kept in the bettermost farms in a chest that was locked to protect the house from harm. Number 5. A ring made of the mountain ash acted as a talisman. Rings made of this wood were generally placed under the doorsteps to frustrate the evil designs of witches, and the inmates dwelt securely when thus protected. This tree was supposed to be a famous charm against witchcraft. Mrs. Susan Williams, Garth, a farm on the confines of Evenachid parish in Denbighshire, told the writer that E. Edwards, Dynabrain, Gwyddelwn, was famous for breaking spells, and consequently his aid was often required. Susan stated that they could not churn at Falvaughan, Derwin. They sent for Edwards, who came and offered up a kind prayer, and then placed a ring made of the bark or of the wood of the mountain ash, I could not recollect which, underneath the churn, or the lid of the churn, and thus the spell was broken. Number 6. A horseshoe found on a road or field and nailed either on or above the door of a house or stable was considered protection from spells. I have seen horseshoes hanging by a string above a door, and likewise nailed with the open part upwards on the door lintel, but quite as often I have observed that the open part is downwards. But however hung on inquiry, the object is the same, viz., secure luck and prevent evil. Number 7. Drawing blood from a witch or conjurer by anyone incapacitated these evildoers from working out their designs upon the person who spilt their blood. I was told of a tailor's apprentice who, on the termination of his time, having heard and believing that his master was a conjurer, when saying goodbye, doubled up his fingers and struck the old man on the nose, making his blood spurt in all directions. There, master, said he, there is no ill will between us, for you can now do me no harm, for I have drawn your blood, and you cannot witch me. Number 8. Drawing blood from a bewitched animal breaks the spell. In the days of my youth at Llanidlos, a couple of valuable horses were said to be bewitched, and they were bled to break the spell. If blood could not be got from horses and cattle, it was considered to be a positive proof that they were bewitched, and unless the spell could be broken, nothing, it was said, could save them from death. Number 9. It was generally thought that if a witch said the word God to a child or person whom she had bewitched, it would undo her work. My friend Mr. Edward Hamer, in his parochial account of Llanidlos, published the Montgomeryshire Collections, Volume 10, page 242, records an instance of this belief. His words are, about 50 years ago, the narrator was walking up Longbridge Street when he saw a large crowd in one of the yards leading from the street to a factory. Upon making his way to the centre of this crowd, he saw an old woman in a fit, real or feigned, he could not say. but he believed the latter, and over her stood an angry middle-aged man, gesticulating violently, threatening the old dame that he would hang her from an adjacent beam if she would not pronounce the word God to a child which was held in its mother's arms before her. It was in vain that the old woman protested her innocence, in vain that she said that by complying with his request he would stand before them a confessed witch, in vain that she fell into one fit after another and prayed to be allowed to depart. Not a sympathizing face could she for some time see in the crowd, until the wife of a manufacturer who lived close by appeared on the scene, who also pleaded in vain on her behalf. Terrified beyond all measure, and scarcely knowing what she did, the old woman mumbled something to the child. It smiled. The angry parents were satisfied the spell was broken. The crowd dispersed, and the old woman was allowed to depart quietly. Number 10. The earth from a churchyard sprinkled over any place preserved it from spells. Mr. Roberts, Plasenyon, Llanfair de Clwyd, a very aged farmer, told me that when a certain main or cockfighting had been arranged, his father's servant man, suspecting unfair play and believing that his master's birds had been bewitched, went to the churchyard and carried therefrom a quantity of consecrated earth, with which he slyly sprinkled the cockpit, and thus he averted the evil and broke the spell, and all the birds fought and won according to their deserts. Oh, thank you for the care package and head pats, Carrie. How are you, honey? Hope you're doing well. My drink. Thank you, Carrie. How have you been, sweetie? It's lovely to see you. I'm doing great. I'm doing great today. Thank you. I've been being showered with some love and support from everybody today, and we're covering some more Welsh folklore today. Currently going through ways that you can protect yourself from witches' curses and how to break them, which is really fun. But I hope your Friday is going well, and I hope you have some nice plans for the weekend. How are you spending your weekend, Carrie? I hope it's going to be something fun or just relaxing. That's always good too. So number 11 is anything taken into a church belonging to a farm supposed to be cursed, broke the spell or curse laid upon the place from which that thing was taken. About 20 years ago, when the writer was curate of Llanwnog, Montgomeryshire, and Mrs. Hughes, a farmer's wife, who was a firm believer in omens, charms, and spells, told me that she knew nothing would come of the spell against so-and-so, and when asked to explain the matter, she said that she had seen straw taken from that farm kindle the fire in the church, and thus she said the spell was broken. Drawing and sitting at home. Oh, what are you going to be drawing, Carrie? That sounds fun. Fill up my drink. Ooh. SMR. My pop. You know. I know Paolo will be like, it's not water. Wait, what have I got? Cherry Coke. Cherry Cola Zero. So number 12, a pin thrust into witch's butter would cause the witch to undo her work. Witch's butter is a name given to a kind of fungus that grows on decayed wood. The fungus resembles little lumps of butter, and hence its name. Should anyone think himself witched, all he has got to do is to procure witch's butter and then thrust a pin into it. It was thought that the pin penetrated the wicked witch, and every pin thrust into the fungus went into her body, and thus she was forced to appear and undo her mischief, and be herself relieved from bodily pain by relieving others. I think I've seen that type of fungus. There are a lot of different funguses out there. So number 13 is a conjurer's charm could master a witch's spell. It was thought that when a person was under a witch's spell, he could get relief and punish the witch by procuring a charm from a conjurer. This charm was a bit of paper, often covered with illegible writing, but whatever was on it made no great difference, for the persons who procured the charms were usually illiterate. The process was as follows. Party cursed took the charm and thrust a pin through it, and having waited a while to see whether the witch would appear or not, proceeded to thrust another pin through the paper, and if the witch were tardy in appearing, pin after pin was thrust into the paper, and every pin, it was thought, went into the body of the spiteful hag, and brought it ultimately to the house where her curse was being broken, in shocking pain, and when there it was believed, she would say, Ugato bob peth agi feddwch qui. God preserve everything which you possess. Number 14. Certain plants were supposed to possess the power of destroying charms. The Reverend D. James, rector of Garth Bebo, was asked by Evan Williams, the Bowl parishioner, whether he feared witches, and when answered in the negative, the interrogator appeared surprised. However, a while afterwards, Williams went to the rectory and told the rector that he knew why he did not fear witches, and proceeded to tell him that he had seen a plant in the front of the rectory that protected the house from charms. This was what he called Napen Fair. In some parts of England, the snapdragon is supposed to possess a like virtue, and also the elder tree. Mr. Davis, schoolmaster in Llangadw, informed the writer that at one time, hyssop was hung on the inside of the house door to protect the inmates from charms. Gotta love flowers. I love flowers. Wales has an abundance of nature flowers. Number 15. The seventh daughter could destroy charms. The seventh son thought to possess supernatural power, and so also was the seventh daughter, but her influence seemed to have been exerted against witchcraft. I mean, big families. Better hope they had a daughter then. Number 16. The sign of the cross on the door made the inmates invulnerable, and when made with the finger on the breast, it was a protection from evil. The sign of the cross made on the person was once common in Wales, and the advice given by the aged when a person was in any difficulty was, groesa, cross yourself. The custom of crossing the door on leaving the house lingered long in many places, and I think it is not altogether given up in our days. And number 17, invoking the aid of the Holy Trinity. This was resorted to, as seen in the charm given on page 270, when animals were witched. I'm going to be running a break time for about 10-15 minutes so I can make some tea and use the bathroom as always, which is needed. I'll be running a 3-minute ad on the intermission screen, so you're not losing out on any of today's stream. You know, I like to make sure you guys are getting all the content you need. But there's going to be a 3-minute ad playing during the intermission. So during these 10-15 minutes, make sure you go to the bathroom, get yourself some snacks and drinks and whatnot. But yeah, I'll see you guys in about 10-15 minutes, okay? Hi. Welcome back. Guys for being. Oh, I needed a break. Tea, honey. Had to go to the bathroom. But I hope you guys managed to stretch your legs to the bathroom and get yourself snacks and drinks and all that fun stuff. So we are back with the way to find out whether a hag is a witch or not. So I hope you guys are ready. So it was generally supposed that a witch could not pray, and one way of testing her guilty connection with the evil one was to ascertain whether she could repeat the Lord's Prayer correctly. If she failed to do so, she was pronounced to be a witch. This test, as everyone knows, must have been a fallacious one, for there are good, living, illiterate people who are incapable of saying their prayer. But such was the test, and failure meant death. Some 50 years ago, when the writer was a lad in school, he noticed a crowd in short brick street, Lanidlos, around an aged, decrepit woman, apparently a stranger from the hill country, and on inquiring what was going on, he was told that the woman was a suspected witch, and that they were putting her to the test. I believe she was forced to go on her knees and use the name of God and say prayer. However, the poor frightened thing got successfully through the ordeal, and I saw her walk away from the judges. Another manner for discovering a witch was to weigh her against the church Bible. If the Bible went up, she was set at liberty. If, on the other hand, she was lighter than the Bible, she was a witch and forfeited her life. Swimming a witch was another method, and this was the one generally resorted to. The suspected person was taken to a river or pool of water. Her feet and hands were tied and she was thrown in. If she sank, she was innocent. If she floated, she was a witch, never reached the bank alive. Such as the proceeding was some of the ridiculous trials which poor, badly clad, aged, toothless, and wrinkled women were put by their superstitious neighbours to ascertain whether these miserable women were in league with the devil. Like, I'm not being. It's surely like the I never understood like throwing the witches into the lake theory. I never understood that one. Never. There are a lot of older tests they did that just, in these days, which are very confusing. Now we hit the topic of conjurers. So these were more typically the male counterpart of witches per se. Either be good or bad. Number one, it was formerly believed that men could sell themselves to the devil and thus become the possessors of supernatural power. These men were looked upon as malicious conjurers. 2. Another species of conjurers practiced magical arts, having obtained their knowledge from the study of books. These were accounted able to thwart the designs of evil workers of every description. Merlin was sort of known as a conjurer. In our modern day society now, he would be known as, say, a wizard. Back then, the term would be conjurer. 3. There was another class of men supposed to obtain strange power from their ancestors. They were looked upon as charmers and conjurers by descent. Number 1. Those who belonged to the first mentioned class were not in communion with the church, and the first step taken by them to obtain their object was to unbaptize themselves. The process was as follows. The person who wished to sell himself to the devil went to a holy well, took water therefrom 3 times into his mouth, and spurted it out in a derisive manner, and thus having relieved himself, as it was thought, of his baptismal vow, he was ready and fit to make a contract with the evil one. 2. The second kind of conjurer obtained their knowledge of the occult science from the study of books. Generally learned men were, by the ignorant, supposed to possess uncanny power. When the writer lived in Carnarvonshire, he was informed that Owen Williams, Wayne Vower, had magical books kept in a box under lock and key, and that he never permitted anyone to see them. Poor Owen Williams. I wonder whether he knew of the popular rumour. Oh my god, hi kid! Oh, that scared me. Hi readers! Hi my jelly daughter, how are you? Thank you for the raid kit! Oh my god! Why is my... Oh my god! We good! Hi guys! Oh, let me give you a shout out, my darling! Oh my goodness! Oh, you... I'm still recovering from that heart attack. Oh my god, you're playing Genshin! Hi Kit, and hello raiders! Hi Auk! Hi Kita! Hi Dark! And Auk! Hi everybody! How are you? You're rolling around! That sounds awesome! I hope you've been well! I've missed you! How are you guys? Welcome on in, raiders! If you've not joined me before, I'm Nozomi, the Welsh Dragon, and here we are in Raven's Hollow. Today is Folklore Friday, and we are going into more Welsh folklore, because I like sharing my heritage with you guys, and my stories and tales. And I want to be covering so much folklore from around the world as well. But yes, welcome in! Welcome in. I'm on the long path to saving towards my live 2D model and stuff, so, you know, baby steps. Stop the babes and run, but I have to flee. I'll keep you tabbed though, Mom. Have a happy stream. That is okay, Kit! Thank you, Sweet Pea. Make sure you eat and you get plenty of rest. And don't overwork yourself. I appreciate the raid, darling. It means so much to me. Thank you. Oh my god, how have you all been? Welcome on in. I hope you got your tea and your snacks. It raided Bish. So much support. I get so involved in reading that all the notifications always scare me. I'm a sucker for jump scares. Oh, I'm so happy. Welcome on in, guys. Let's see who we got. We got Dark, we got Auk, we got Kita Makara. Oh, welcome in, Kita. You're a new little face. How are you, sweetheart? How you doing, Auk? It's lovely to see you. Yeah, we're currently talking about conjurers in Wales, in Welsh folklore and history. So the following tale of Hugh Llwyd's books I obtained from the Reverend R. Jones, recorder in Llanaseel. For those not accustomed to my Welsh folklores, you get to hear a whole bunch of Welsh terms and language. Some come with translations, so don't worry. So you'll hear quite a lot of confusing words if you're not accustomed to the Welsh language, but I hope you stick around and I hope you enjoy it and, you know, take an interest. I'm excited. I get friends. Yay! So this is about Hugh Llwyd and his magical books. So the story, as it has reached our days, is as follows. It is said that Hugh Llwyd had 2 daughters, one of an inquisitive turn of mind, like himself, while the other resembled her mother, and cared not for books. On his deathbed, he called his learned daughter to his side and directed her to take his books on the dark science and throw them into a pool which he named from the bridge that spanned the river. The girl went to Llyn Point Rhydd Ddu with the books and stood on the bridge watching the whirlpool beneath, but she could not persuade herself to throw them over and thus destroy her father's precious treasures. So she determined to tell him a falsehood and say that she had cast them into the river. On her return home, her father asked her whether she had thrown the books into the pool, and on receiving an answer in the affirmative, he, inquiring whether she had seen anything strange when the books reached the river, was informed that she had seen nothing. "Then," said he, "you have not complied with my request. I cannot die until the books are thrown into the pool." She took the books a second time to the river, and now, very reluctantly, she hurled them into the pool and watched their descent. They had not reached the water before two hands appeared, stretched upwards out the pool, and these hands caught the books before they touched the water, and clutching them carefully, both the books and the hands disappeared beneath the waters. She went home immediately and again appeared before her father, and in answer to his question, she related what had occurred. "Now," said he, "I know you have thrown them in, and I can now die in peace." She forthwith did. Luna! Hi, Luna! Need help with that. How are you, Luna? Hi, Bunny Faye! Gonna need help with that. Welcome on in, Luna Star! Luna Star, Light Wolf Goddess. That is a lovely name, sweetie. Welcome on into the raid. And welcome to my stream. Hi, Bunny Bay. You not sleeping yet? How's the update with your art tablet? Any progress on that, honey? Hey, Mama. Doing a story time. Let me just make myself complete. It's Folklore Friday, Bunny. So we're doing some more Welsh folklore, sweetheart. I got some more tea during my break. Some honey in it. You received your package today. Oh, have you got a replacement for your screen protector now? Oh, that'd be good. Alright. It's even better than the previous one. Oh, yay! So the art can continue. I'm so happy. Keep it away from your brother. Good God. Did you order it, or did your family get one for you? Or did you ask Eisen? So, 3. Hereditary conjurers or charmers were thought to be beneficial to society. They were charmers rather than conjurers. In this category is to be reckoned A. The 7th son of a family of sons born the one after the other. B. The 7th daughter in a family of daughters, born in succession without a brother between. This person could undo spells and curses, but she could not herself curse others. C. The descendants of a person who had eaten eagle's flesh could, for 9 generations, charm for the shingles, or, as it is called in Welsh, Swn o'r Rhywri. Rhi. Asked my family to get me one. Oh, that's good. Is he? Is he busy with exams? I haven't heard a peep out of him, honestly. Yeah, my dear manager Eisen has been very quiet. I'll drop him a message, though. He said he'd get back to me about something, like, a few days ago. But I haven't heard a peep from him. I'll drop him a message, like, tomorrow. See if he's still alive. Got plans I need to talk to him about. I think it's last time he mentioned about his exams. God, jeez, he's so hard-working. I'll have to make sure he's taking care of himself tomorrow. Can't have my manager, like, being sick and, like, working himself to death. Do you get to work on your art and stuff now, Bunny? Oh! didn't your boyfriend celebrate his birthday recently, Bunny? I remember you mentioning that. So conjurers were formerly quite common in Wales. When I say common, I mean that there was no difficulty in obtaining their aid when required, and they were within easy reach of those who wished to consult them. Some became more celebrated than others, and consequently their services were in greater requisition. But it may be said that each district had its wise man. The office of the conjurer was to counteract the machinations of witches, and to deliver people from their spells. They were looked upon as the natural enemies of witches. Instances have already been given of this antagonism. The conjurers could act on their own account, and if they did not show the same spiteful nature as witches, they, nevertheless, were credited with possessing great and dangerous power. They dealt freely in charms and spells, and obtained large sums of money for their talismanic papers. They could, it was believed, by their incantations reveal the future, and oblige light-fingered people to restore the things they had stolen. Even a fishing rod made by a conjurer was sure to bring luck to the fisherman. Lovers and haters alike resorted to the wise man to attain through his aid their object. There were but few, in any, matters beyond their comprehension, and hence the almost unbounded confidence placed in these impostors by the superstitious and credulous. Strange as it may seem, even in this century there are many who still consult these deceivers, but more of this by and by. I will now relate a few tales of the doings of these conjurers, and from the reader can infer how baneful their influence was upon the rustic population of Wales. I wanted to know if you gave him a gift. That's why I asked, silly. Come at me with your knife, child. Told you to stay out the kitchen drawers. Then there's Kit, my other child. An absolute sweet little bean. And then Bunny's like, where are the knives? I'm like, no. So, the magician's glass. So this glass, into which a person looked when he wished to solve the future, or to ascertain whom he or she was to marry, was used by Welsh, as well as other magicians. The glass gave back the features of the person sought after, and reflected the future career of the seeker after the hidden future. It was required that the spectator should concentrate all his attention on the glass, and on the principle that they who gazed long should not gaze in vain, he obtained the desired glimpse. Brut Cadno, also already referred to, professed to have such a glass. But the magician's glass is an instrument so often mentioned in connection with necromancy in all parts of the world that more need not be said of it. I will now give a few stories illustrative of the conjurer's powers. Mind if I borrow the knives, Mom? My word, I won't slice humans this time. This time. Who are you going after this time? Jeez. And it's like, I'm only preparing a salad, I promise. But no, we don't run with sharp things. The manager, no, he's doing his exams. He'll most likely hurt himself with a paper cut. You're fine. We only use knives to cut snacks. And to defeat our enemies. I mean, if you go after him with a knife, I'm gonna have to tell him you're staying up late. Because time zones. I know what time it is over there for you, young lady. You have to behave for story times. But this one, we can talk about. No! Be good, buddy. I'll give you the mom talk. I could send you to bed. Just don't let Isa know I'm awake. Well then, don't be stabbing things. Enjoy story time, silly. Time zones. I know how they work over there. I'm sort of learning how everybody's time zones work, and I know, like, when you come to hear my streams, it's like, you should be sleeping. I appreciate you coming, honey, when you stop by. It makes my day very precious. You sacrifice sleep for me. That's really sweet. Means a lot to me, Bunny. Make sure you get plenty of rest this weekend as well. And you get to do lots of drawing now that you have your like, protective thingy. The words just can't fathom with me. Yes. I should crochet a little bunny at some point and keep it in my bedroom. I need to start crocheting again. I have so much wool to get through. Be like a little old lady doing it. Those accessories are my serotonin. Oh, yes. We always like a bit of serotonin here. Oh my god. Bunny, I'm not sure if you've seen the anime My Hero Academia yet, but I crocheted the Principal Nezu. I have him at home. I need to find him and take a picture to send you at some point. I made that from scratch. I just need to get a picture of the army of owls I made for a friend. Like, one of my friends commissioned an entire army of owls just for his cat. And I was like, yes, I'm here for that. Alright, so we're going to jump into a conjurer's punishment of an innkeeper for his exorbitant charges. A famous conjurer, Dick Spot. Why is that his name? God! Why is that his name? So a famous conjurer, Dick Spot, was on his way to Llanrwst, and he turned into a public house in Hen Llan for refreshments. He called for a glass of beer and bread and cheese, and was charged 10 pence for the same, 4 pence for the beer, and 6 pence for the bread and cheese. This charge he considered outrageous, but he paid the demand, and before departing, he took a scrap of paper and wrote on it a spell, and hid it under the table, then went on his way. That evening, soon after the landlord and landlady had retired for the night, leaving the servant girl to clear up, they were surprised to hear in the kitchen an unaccountable noise. Shouting and jumping was the order of the day, or rather night, in that room. The good people heard the girl shout at the top of her voice, 6 and 4 are 10. Count it or again. And then she danced like mad round and round the kitchen. They sternly requested the girl to cease yelling, and to come to bed, but the only answer they received was, 6 and 4 are 10, count it or again. And with accelerated speed, she danced around the kitchen. The thought now struck the landlord that the girl had gone out of her mind, and so he got up and went to see what was the matter with her, with the intention of trying to get her away from the kitchen. But the moment he placed foot in the kitchen, he gave a jump and joined the girl in her mad dance, and with her he shrieked out, 6 and 4 are 10, count it or again. So now the noise was doubled, and the good wife, finding that her husband did not return to her, became very angry, if not jealous. She shouted to them to cease their row, but all to no purpose. The dancing and shouting continued. Then she left her bed and went to the kitchen door, and greatly disgusted she was to see her husband and maid dancing together in that shameless manner. She stood at the door a moment or two, observing their frantic behaviour, and then she determined forcibly to put a stop to the proceedings, so into the room she bounded, but with a hop and a jump she joined in the dance and sang out in chorus with the other two, 6 and 4 are 10, count it or again. The uproar now was great indeed, and roused the neighbours from their sleep. They from outside heard the mad dance and the words, and guessed that Dick Spot had been the cause of all of this. One of those present hurried after the conjurer, who, fortunately, was close at hand, and desired him return to the inn to release the people from his spell. "Oh," said Dick, "take the piece of paper that is under the table and burn it, and they will then stop their row." The man returned to the inn, pushed open the door, and rushed to the table and cast the paper into the fire. Then the trio became quiet, for they had nearly exhausted themselves by their severe exertions. Here they were released from the power of the spell. That's funny, that one. Overcharge me, now you'll dance like fools. Well, I suppose that was a lot back in that day for a lot of things. I'd ask my granddad about if 10 pence was a lot back then, but he's not here anymore. He used to collect old coins, which was really cool. I used to love learning about all those things. I got to see like what a real halfpenny is like a halfpenny and stuff. That was super cool. So this one is about a conjurer and robbers. A conjurer or gear or Gua, oh my god, Gua Cyfarwydd was travelling over the Denbighshire hills to Carnarvonshire. Being weary, he entered a house that he saw on his way, and he requested refreshments, which were given to him by a young woman. But, said she, you must make haste and depart, for my brothers will soon be here, and they are desperate men, and they will kill you. But no, the stranger was in no hurry to move on, and though repeatedly besought to depart, he would not do so. To the great dread and fear of the young woman, her brothers came in, and, in anger at finding a stranger there, bade him prepare for death. He requested a few minutes' respite, and took out a book and commenced reading. When he was thus engaged, a horn began growing in the centre of the table, and on this the robbers were obliged to gaze, and they were unable to move. The stranger went to bed, and found the robbers in the morning still gazing at the horn, as he knew they would be, and he departed, leaving them thus engaged. And the tale goes that they were arrested in that position, being unable to offer any resistance to their captors. There are several versions of the horn tale afloat. Instead of being made to grow out of the table, it was made to grow out of a person's head or forehead. There is a tradition that Hugh Llwyd was able to do this wonderful thing, and that he actually did it. My tea is very tasty. Spoonful of honey in it. So this one is The Conjurer and the Cattle. R.H., a farmer in Llansilin parish, who lost several head of cattle, sent or went to Sean Cyfarwydd, who lived in Llanbrynmawr, well-known conjurer, for information concerning their death, and for a charm against further loss. Both were obtained, and the charm worked so well that the grateful farmer sent a letter to Sean, acknowledging the benefit he had derived from him. This Sean was a great terror to thieves, for he was able to spot them and mark them in such a way that they were known to be culprits. I am indebted to Mr. Jones, rector of Folklore near Denby, for the 3 following stories, in which the very dread of being marked by Sean was sufficient to make the thieves restore the stolen property. Stolen property discovered through fear of applying to the Llanbrynmawr conjurer. Sir Richard Thomas, post office in Llangadvan, lost a coat and waistcoat, and he suspected a certain man of having stolen them. One day this man came to the shop, and Thomas saw him there, and, speaking to his wife from the kitchen in a loud voice, so as to be heard by the customer in the shop, he said that he wanted the loan of a horse to go to Llanbrynmawr. Llanbrynmawr was, as we know, the conjurer's place of abode. Thomas, however, did not leave his house, nor did he intend doing so. That very night, the stolen property was returned, and it was found the next morning on the doorsill. He must have been so, well known that just the mere mention of where he lived, must have scared a bunch of people. So, reclaiming stolen property through fear of the conjurer. A mason engaged in the restoration of Garthbabo Church placed a trowel for safety underneath a stone, but by morning it was gone. Casually in the evening, he informed his fellow workmen that he had lost his trowel, and that someone must have stolen it. that he was determined to find out the thief by taking a journey to Llanbryn Mare. He never went, but the ruse was successful. The next morning he found, as he suspected would be the case, the trowel underneath the very stone where he had himself placed it. Another similar tale. £30 was stolen from Glan Yr Afon, Garth Babel. The owner made known to his household that he intended going to Sean the Conjurer to ascertain who had taken his money. But the next day the money was discovered being restored, as was believed by the thief the night before. These stories show that the ignorant and superstitious were influenced through fear to restore what they had wrongfully appropriated, and their faith in the conjurer's powers thus resulted, in some degree, in good to the community. The Dyn Hispis was feared when no one else was feared, and in this way the supposed conjurer was not altogether an unimportant nor unnecessary member of society. At the time, particularly when people are in a low state of civilization, or when they still cling to the pagan faith of their forefathers, transmitted to them from remote ages, then something can be procured for the good of the benighted people, even through the medium of the Gwyr Cyfarwydd. Events occurred occasionally by a strange coincidence, to which the fame of the Dyn Hispis became greatly increased. An event of this kind is related by Mr. Edward Hamer. He states that two respectable farmers living in the upper vale of the Severn, Cwm Glyn Hafren, and standing in relationship to each other of uncle and nephew, a few years ago purchased each a pig of the same litter from another farmer. When bought, both animals were, to all appearance, in excellent health and condition, and for a short time after their removal to their new homes, both continued to improve daily. It was not long, however, before both were taken ill very suddenly. As there appeared something very strange in the behaviour of his animal, the nephew firmly believed that he was witched, and acting upon this belief, set out for the neighbouring conjurer. Having received certain injunctions from the wise man, he returned home, carried them out, and had the satisfaction of witnessing the gradual recovery of the pig. The uncle paid no attention to the persuasions, and even entreaties of his nephew. He would not believe that his pig was witched, and refused to consult the conjurer. The pig died after an illness of 3 weeks, and many thought the owner deserved little sympathy for manifesting such obstinacy and scepticism. These events occurred in the spring of the year 1870, and were much talked of at the time. Montgomeryshire Collections, Volume 10, page 40. Conjurers retained their repute by much knavery and collusion with others. Tales are not wanted that expose their impostures. Reverend Meredith Hamer, late of Bursey, told me of the following exposure of a conjurer. I know not where the event occurred, but it is a typical case. Oh, we're all out of tea. Travesty! We're out of tea, guys. No. I need to make sure I fill up my travelling flask for extra tea during streams. I keep forgetting to do that lately. So a conjurer's collusion exposed. This man's house consisted of but few rooms. Between the kitchen and his study, or consulting room, was a slight partition. He had a servant girl whom he admitted as a partner in his trade. This girl, when she saw a patient approach the house, which she was able to do, because there was only one approach to it, and only one entrance, informed her master of the fact that someone was coming, and he immediately disappeared, and he placed himself in the position to hear the conversation of the girl with the person who had come to consult him. The servant, by questioning the party, adroitly obtained the information respecting the case which her master required. When she obtained the necessary information, he would appear, and forthwith tell the stranger that he knew hours before or days ago that he was to have the visit now paid him. and then he would relate all the particulars which he had himself heard through the partition, to the amazement of the stranger, who was ignorant of this means of communication. At other times, if a person who wished to consult him came to the house when the conjurer was in the kitchen, he would disappear as before, stating that he was going to consult his books, and then his faithful helper would proceed to extort the necessary information from the visitor. On this, he would reappear and exhibit his wonderful knowledge to the amazed dupe. On one occasion, though, a knowing one came to the conjurer with an arm in a sling, and forthwith the wise man disappeared, leaving the maid to conduct the necessary preliminary examination, and her visitor minutely described how the accident had occurred, and how he had broken his arm in 2 places, etc. All this the conjurer heard, and he came into the room and rehearsed all that he had heard, but the biter was bitten. For the stranger, taking his broken arm out of the sling, in no very polite language, accused the conjurer of being an impostor, and pointed out the way in which the collusion had been carried out between him and his maid. This was an exposure the conjurer had not foreseen. Oh my god. Conjurer scam artists back in the day. So the conjurer's dress. Conjurers, when engaged in their uncanny work, usually wore a grotesque dress and stood within a circle of protection. I find so graphic a description of a doctor who dealt in divination in Mr. Hancock's History of Llanrhaeadr yn Mochnan that I will transcribe it. He, the raiser of the devils, was much resorted to by the friends of parties mentally deranged, many of whom he cured. Whenever he assumed to practice the black art, he put on the most grotesque dress, a cap of sheepskin with a high crown bearing a plume of pigeon's feathers, and a coat of unusual pattern, broad hems, and covered with talismanic characters. In his hand he had a whip, the thong of which was made of the skin of an eel, and the handle of a bone. With this he drew a circle around him, outside of which, at a proper distance, kept those persons who came with him, whilst he went through his mystic sentences and performances. The Montgomeryshire Collections, Volume 6, pages 329 to 330. We get to move on to charms now. Different types of charms. The cure of diseases by charms is generally supposed to be a kind of superstition antagonistic to common sense, and yet there are undoubted cases of complete cures through the instrumentality of charms. Warts are undoubtedly removed by the faith of those persons who suffer from them in the power of the charmer and his charms. The writer has had innumerable instances of the efficacy of wart charms, but it is not his intention to endeavour to trace the effect of charms on highly sensitive people, but only to record those charms that he has seen or heard of as having been used. This one is Sunor Riri, for the charming the shingles. The shingles is a skin disease which encircles the body like a girdle, and the belief was that if it did so, the patient died. However, there was a charm for procuring its removal, which was generally resorted to with success. But the last person who could charm this disease in Montgomeryshire lies buried on the west side of the church, Pent Bontfawr, and consequently there is no one now in those parts able to charm the shingles. The inscription on his tombstone informs us that Robert Davis Llanhafon Fawr died March 13th, 1864, aged 29, so that faith in this charm has reached our days. It was believed that the descendants of a person who had eaten eagle's flesh, the 9th generation, could charm for shingles. The manner of proceeding can be seen from the following quotation taken from the history of Llanrhaeadr and Mochnant by Mr. T.W. Hancock, which appears in Volume 6's pages 327 to 8 of the Montgomeryshire collection. Get on to the charm for the shingle. This custom, charming for the shingles, is more prevalent in the parish than in any other in Montgomeryshire. A certain amount of penance was to be done by the sufferer, who was to go to the charmer in the morning fasting, and he was also to be fasting. The mode of cure was simple. The charmer breathed gently on the inflamed part, and then followed a series of little spittings upon and around it. A few visits to the charmer, or sometimes a single one, was sufficient to effect a cure, the breathing and spitting on it. Power of charming for the Riri, now lost, or in any event, has not been practised in the parish for several years past. The possession of this remarkable healing power by the charmer was said to have been derived from the circumstance of either the charmer himself or one of his ancestors within the 9th degree having eaten the flesh of the eagle, virtue being, it was alleged, transmitted from the person who had so partaken to his descendants for 9 generations. The tradition is that the disorder was introduced into the country by a malevolent eagle. Some charmers before the operation of spitting muttered to themselves the following incantation: Ir erir eredis, mi eith than vonais, thros na môr, a thros no mynydd, a thros na o dir anghelfydd. Pli na chyfaddo hi, ac ni frefo bwch, ac na ddelo i'r erir bydd yn bwch. Male eagle, female eagle, I send you by the operation of blowing, we presume, over 9 seas and over 9 mountains, and over 9 acres of unprofitable land, where no dog shall bark and no cow shall low, where no eagle shall higher rise. The charmer spat first on the rash and rubbed it with his finger over the affected parts, and then breathed 9 times on it. Jane Davis, an aged woman, a native of Llanrhaeadr and Mochnant, with whom I had many long conversations on several occasions, told the narrator that she had cut a cat's ear to get blood, wherewith to rub the patient's breast who was suffering from the shingles, to stop its progress, until the sufferer could be visited by the charmer, and she said that the cat's blood always stopped the spreading. There were several charms for many of the ailments to which man is subject, which were thought to possess equal curative virtue. We have toothache charms now. By repeating the following doggerel lines, the worst case of toothache could be cured. Peter sat on a marble stone. Jesus came to him all alone. What's up, Peter? The toothache, my lord. Rise up, Peter, and be cured of this pain, and all those who carry these few lines for my sake. This charm appeared in the Wrexham Advertiser as one that was used in Coed Poeth and Bulch Gwyn. But the words appear in a Gwyliaidd for May 1826, page 151. The Welsh heading to the charm informs us that it was obtained from an Irish priest in County Cork, Ireland. The words are Fel i'r oedd Pedir yn eistedd a fe'n minor. Christ ei ddaeth ato ach ef yn unig. Pedir beth a ddarfw I ti. I ddanodd fi arglwydd ddiw. Cyfod Pedir rydd fyddi. A bydd pob dyn a dynes iach o ddiwrth danodd. I rei ei gredan i'r geriau hun. I'r wyf fi yn fynedder un enw Dduw. First two lines of the English and Welsh are the same, but the third and succeeding lines in Welsh are as follows. Peter, what is the matter? The toothache, my Lord God. Rise, Peter, thou shalt be cured. And every man and woman who believes these words shall be cured of the toothache, which I perform in the name of God. Another version of this charm was given me by Mrs. Reynolds, Pembroke House, Oswestry. As Jesus walked through the gates of Jerusalem, he saw Peter weeping. Jesus said unto him, Why weepest thou? I have got the toothache. Jesus touched his tooth, and Jesus said, Have faith and believe. Thy tooth shall ache no more. I return you humble and hearty thanks for the blessing which you have bestowed on me. A young man told me that his brother once suffered greatly from toothache, and a woman gave him a charm like the above, written on paper. He rubbed the charm along the tooth, and he kept it in his pocket until it crumbled away. And as long as he preserved it, he never was troubled with the toothache. Oh damn! I hope I hope that's still a thing. It could have helped me yesterday when I had a bit of a toothache. So a rosemary charm for toothache. So Loch eg bren rosemary hyd oni bo yn do di ac yna dero ef mewn caddach llein crai ac i'r di ddanedd ag ef ac fwladd I pryfedd ac e ceido rhag pob hefyd from Ibryddon page 339. So burn a rosemary bough until it becomes black and then place it on in a strong linen cloth and anoint thy teeth with it, and it will kill the worm and preserve thee from every kind of fever. It was thought that at one time that toothache was caused by a worm in the tooth, as intimated above. Oh damn. No worms in our teeth, please. So we've got the whooping cough charm. So children suffering from whooping cough were taken to the seventh son, or lacking a seventh son of sons only, with fifth son of sons only, who made a cake and gave it to the sufferers to be eaten by them, and they would recover. The visit was to be thrice repeated. Bread and butter was sometimes substituted for the cake. The writer has been told of instances of the success of this charm. Another charm was, buy a penny roll, wrap it in calico, bury it in the garden, and take it up next day. The sufferer from whooping cough is then to eat the roll until it is consumed. Cake for a whooping cough. Sounds nice. I like cake. So, charm for fits. So a ring made out of offertory money was a cure for fits. About the year 1882, the wife of a respectable farmer in the parish of Avenachid called at the rectory and asked the rector's wife if she would procure a shilling for her from the offering made at Holy Communion, out of which she was going to have a ring made to cure her fits. This coin was to be given unsolicited and received without thanks. Reverend J.D. Edwards, late vicar of Rosamedra, informed the writer that his parishioners often obtained silver coins from the offertory, the purpose now named. So as to comply with the conditions, the sufferers went to Mrs. Edwards sometime during the week before Sacrament Sunday and asked her to request Mr. Edwards give him or her a shilling out of the offertory, and on the following Monday the afflicted person would be in the vicarage, and the vicar, having already been instructed by Mr. Edwards, gave the shilling without uttering a word, and it was received in the same manner. Another charm for fits was to procure a human being's skull, grind it into powder, and take it as medicine. Oh geez, that one went extreme. Here, take my skull, I don't need it. So there are charms. There's charm for cocks about to fight. That being like roosters, by the way. You know, get your mind out the gutters, everybody. So the charm consisted of a verse taken from the Bible. written on a slip of paper wrapped around the bird's leg as the steel spurs were being placed upon him. The verse so employed was F 6:16. Taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked. William Jones from Penllethyrfrith, Llanfillin, was a celebrated cock charmer. There was also a well-known charmer who lived in Llandegla in Denbighshire who refused a charm to a certain man. When asked why he had not complied with his request, he said, "He will not need charms for his birds, for he will be a dead man before the mane comes off." It came true, for the man died, foretold. There's a charm for asthma. In the olden days was to place a Bible for 3 successive nights under the bolster of the sufferer, and it will cure him. There's charms for warts. There are 6 of these. So number 1 was to drop a pin into a holy well and your warts will disappear. But should anyone take the pin out of a well, the warts you have lost will grow on his fingers. Number 2 was to rub the warts with the inside of a bean pod and then throw the pod away. Number 3 was to take wheat on the stalk, rub the warts with the wheat's beards or bristles at the end of the ear. Then these, before crosses or roads cross each other, bury straw, and the warts will decay with the decay of the straw. Number 4 was to rub the warts with elderberry leaves plucked by night and then burn them, and the warts will disappear. Number 5 was to rub the warts with a bit of flesh meat. Wrap the flesh up in paper, throw it behind your back, and do not look behind you to see what becomes of it. And whoever picks it up gets your warts. And number 6 was to take a snail and pierce it through with a thorn and leave it to die on a bush. As it disappears, so will your warts. Okay? A lot of health-related charms in Welsh folklore here, bros. So a charm for removing a sty from the eye. So you take an ordinary knitting needle and pass it back and forth over the sty, but without touching it. At the same time, counting its age, thus 1 sty, 2 sty, 3 styes, up to 9, and then reversing the order. As 9 styes, 8 styes, down to 1 sty, and no sty. This counting was to be done in 1 breath. If the charmer drew his breath, the charm was broken, but 3 attempts were allowed. The sty, it was alleged, would die from that hour and disappear in 24 hours. Charms for quinsy. I have no idea what quinsy is. So applying to the throat hair, cut at midnight from the black shoulder stripe to the of the colt of an ass. Okay. Charming the wild wart. So you take a branch of elder tree, strip off the bark, split off a piece, hold this skewer near the wart and rub the wart 3 or 9 times with the skewer, muttering the while an incantation of your own composing. Then pierce the wart with a thorn. Bury the skewer, transfix the thorn in a dunghill. The wart will rot away just as the buried things decay. Oh jeez. Charm for rheumatism was to carry a potato in your pocket, and when one is finished, supply its place with another. So you live with a potato in your pocket. Okay. Charm for removing ringworm was to spit on the ground the first thing in the morning, mix the spittle with the mould, and then anoint the ringworm with the mixture. Hold an axe over the fire until it perspires, and then anoint the ringworm with the sweat. We have cattle charms now. So Mr. Hamer, in his parochial account of Llanidlos, published the Montgomeryshire Collections, Volume 10, page 249, states that he has in his possession 2 charms that were actually used for the protection of livestock of 2 small farms. One of them opens thus: "In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Ghost, Amen. And in the name of Lord Jesus Christ, my Redeemer, that I will give relief to creatures, his cows, and his calves, and his horses, and his sheep, and his pigs, and all creatures that are alive be in his possession, more witchcraft from all other assaults of Satan. Amen. Mr. Hamer further states that at the bottom of the sheet on the left is the magical word abracadabra, written in the usual triangular form. In the centre, a number of planetary symbols, and on the right, a circular figure filled in with lines and symbols. And beneath the words by Jah Jo Jab, it was the custom to rub these charms over the cattle, etc., a number of times while some incantation was being mumbled. The paper was then carefully folded up and put in some safe place where the animals were housed, as a guard against future visitations. In other cases, the charm was worn by the cattle, as is shown by the following tale. So a charm against foot and mouth disease, which is something cattle get quite. There was an outbreak of it, like cattle, so it's happened like in years ago as well as the modern day. So, gotta go, knows me, have a good stream. Thank you for stopping by, Paolo. And thank you for helping towards my capture card. I appreciate that, darling. You have a lovely rest of your time zone, honey. Thank you for stopping by. The cattle on a certain farm in Llansilin parish suffered from the above complaint. And old Mr. H consulted a conjurer who gave him a written charm which he was directed to place on the horns of the cattle. And he was told this would act both as a preventative and a cure. This farmer's cattle might be seen with a bit of paper. Thus procured tied to their horns. My informant does not wish to be named, nor does she desire the farmer's name to be given, but she vouches for the accuracy of her information. For my own use, she gave me all particulars respecting the above. This took place only a few years ago, when the foot and mouth disease first visited Wales. I obtained through the kindness of the Reverend John Davis, Vicar of Breneglws, the following charm procured by Mr. R. Jones from Tunwern, Breneglws, Denbighshire, who had it from his uncle, by whom it was used at one time. Oh, we get a lovely prayer in Welsh now. I hope it comes with the English. It does. So, yn enw I tad e mab e ysbryd. Bod I grais Iesu I gysegredig a odde fi ar y groes. Pan godai Sant Lazares o'i ffedd wedi fawr. Pan ffaddiwst bechodau I fe Fagdalen a thrigera wyddrith fel bo gadwegyn bob peth a hen wy fi ag a croeswydd fi rhywnydd a rhinwedd di eriau. Bendigedig di fi arglwydd Iesau Christ. Amen. Iesau Christ ein harglwydd ni gwaredd ni rag pop. Rhywogaeth o profedigaeth iabridol o uch die. Nag o is die rag I gythrylig o ddynnu dynus. A chalon ddrwg reiba dda ei berchenol I. A wahanwyd a bwydd gatholig rwyne ar rhywunwedd di eriau bendigedig di fi arglwydd Iesau Christ. Amen. Iesau Christ ein arglwydd ni, gwarydd ni rag I glwyr, a bar ei llyd ar genfigiau ar adwyth. A pleniau wybrenon a gwenwyn. I ar ôl rhyw nerth I rhinwedd di eriau, bendigedig di fi arglwydd Iesau Christ. Amen. It was somewhat difficult to decipher the charms, and 4 words toward the end are quite illegible, and consequently they are omitted. The following translation will show the nature of the charm. So in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, may Christ Jesus, the sanctified one, who suffered death on the cross, when thou didst raise Lazarus from his tomb after his death, when thou forgavest sins to Mary Magdalene, have mercy on me, so that everything named by me and crossed by me may be saved by the power and virtue of thy blessed words, my Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Jesus Christ our Lord, save us from every kind of temptation, whether spiritual above the earth or under the earth, the devilish man or woman with evil heart who bewitched the goods of their owner, his evil virtue, his evil excommunicated heart, cut off from the Catholic faith. By the power and virtue of thy blessed words, my Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Jesus Christ our Lord, save us from the disease and the affliction, and the wrath and the envy, and the mischief, and the planet of the sky and the earthly poison, by the power of virtue and thy blessed words, my Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. The mark X, there was like 4 X's, some of the parts of the prayer. So that indicates the crosses that were made by the person who used the charm. Probably the words of the charm were audibly uttered. We have another cattle charm spell. So Mr. Hughes Plasnewydd from Llansillion lost several head of cattle. He was told to bleed one of the herd, boil the blood, and take it to the cowhouse at midnight. He did so, lost no more after applying this charm. There's a charm for calves, and if calves were scoured overmuch and in danger of dying, a hazel twig the length of the calf was twisted around the neck like a collar, and it was supposed to cure them. We have a charm for stopping bleeding. So Mrs. Reynolds, whom I've already mentioned in connection with the charm for toothache, gave me the following charm. It bears date April 5th, 1842. Our blessed Saviour Jesus Christ was born at Bethlehem, by the Virgin Mary, baptized in the River Jordan by St. John the Baptist. He commanded the water to stop, and it obeyed him. I desire in the name of Jesus Christ, the blood of this vein, all veins might stop, as the water did when Jesus Christ was baptized. A lot of charms actually came from like biblical terms, themes back in the days. So you have a charm to make a servant reliable. They're a mix of like, I've noticed like a lot of the conjurers were back in the old days were a mix of like clergymen and like religious folks, as well as like herbologists and stuff who believed like plants and stuff held great, medicinal properties and stuff like that, which I think is really cool. You got a neb I fynio gael I weinidog yn gwrir, do dedd beth o'r lludw yw'n illad ei weinidog ac ef I fydd gwir tra par holl lludw. Brython Volume 3, pages 137, which is, whosoever wishes to make his servant faithful, let him place the ashes of a snake in the clothes of his servant, and as long as they remain there, he will be faithful. There are many other wonderful things to be accomplished with the skin of an adder or snake besides the preceding. The following are recorded in I'r Brython Volume 3, pages 137. We've got charms performed with snake skin. For 1 is to burn the skin and preserve the ashes. A little salve made out of the ashes will heal a wound. Number 2, a little of the ashes placed between the shoulders will make a man invulnerable. Number 3, whoso places a little of the ashes in the water with which he washes himself, should his enemies meet him, they will flee because of the beauty of his face. Number 4 is to cast a little of the ashes into thy neighbour's house, and he will leave it. Number 5 is to place the ashes under the sole of thy foot, and everyone will agree with thee. Number 6, should a man wrestle you, let him place some of the ashes under his tongue, and no one will conquer him. Number 7, should a man wish to know what is about to occur to him, let him place a pinch of the ashes on his head, and then go to sleep, and his dreams will reveal the future. Number 8, should a person wish to ascertain the mind of another, let him throw a little of the ashes on the person's clothes, and then let him ask what he likes. the answer will be true. Number 9 has already been given above. Okay. Number 10. If a person is afraid of being poisoned in his food, let him place the ashes on the table with his food. Poison cannot stay there with the ashes. Number 11. If a person wishes to succeed in love, let him wash his hands and keep some of the ashes in them, and then everybody will love him. Number 12. The skin of the adder is a remedy against fevers. So if you want people to love you, you have to wash your hand and put some of the snakeskin ashes on them. Then you apparently be irresistible to everybody. That is interesting. So the charms performed with rosemary. We can still find rosemary here today, and I know many modern witches still use rosemary in their own practices. So rosemary dried in the sun and made into powder, tied in a cloth around the right arm, will make the sick well. The smoke of rosemary bark sniffed will, even if you are in gaol, release you. The leaves made into salve placed on a wound where the flesh is dead will cure the wound. A spoon made of its wood will make whatever you eat therewith nutritious. Place it under the doorpost, and no snake nor adder will enter thy home. The leaves placed in beer or wine will keep these liquids from becoming sour, give them such a flavour that you will dispose of them quickly. Place a branch of rosemary into a barrel, and it will keep thee from fever, even though thou drink of it for a whole day. Such were some of the wonderful virtues of this plant as given in the Brithon, Volume 3. So we have the charm for clefyd y galon, or heart disease. The Reverend J. Felix, vicar of Silson, near Mold, when a young man lodged in Eglesfach, near Llandafy, his landlady noticed that he looked pale and thin, suggested that he was suffering from clefyd y galon, which may be translated as above, or love sickness, complaint common enough among young people, and she suggested that he should call in David Jenkins, a respectable farmer and a local preacher with the Wesleyans, to cure him. Jenkins came and asked the supposed sufferer whether he believed in charms, and was answered in the negative. However, he proceeded with his patient as if he had answered in the affirmative. Mr. Felix was told to take his coat off, did so, and then he was bidden to tuck up his shirt above his elbow. Mr. Jenkins then took a yarn thread and placed one end on the elbow, measured to the tip of Felix's middle finger. Then he told his patient to take hold of the yarn at one end, the other end resting the while on the elbow, and he was to take fast hold of it and stretch it. This he did. The yarn lengthened, and this was a sign that he was actually sick of heart disease. Then the charmer tied this yarn around the patient's left arm above the elbow, and there it was left, and on the next visit measured again, he was pronounced cured. The above information I received from Mr. Felix, who was still alive and well. There were various ways of proceeding in this charm. Yarn was always used as a measurement as above made. Sometimes the person was named and his age, and the Trinity was invoked. Then the thread was put around the neck of the sick person and left there for 3 nights, and afterwards buried in the name of the Trinity under ashes. If the thread shortened above the second joint of the middle finger, there was little hope of recovery. Should it lengthen, that was a sign of recovery. We've got clefyd y lan, or yarn sickness. So about 20 years ago, when the writer was curate in Llanwynog, Montgomeryshire, a young Welsh married woman came to reside in the parish, suffering from what appeared to be that fell disease consumption. He visited her with her illness, and one day she appeared much elated. She had been told that she was improving in health. She told the narrator she was suffering from clavia glam, or the woolen thread sickness, and she said that the yarn had lengthened, which was a sign that she was recovering. The charm was the same as the mentioned above, supplemented with a drink made of a quart of old beer, into which a piece of heated steel had been dipped, with an ounce of meadow saffron tied up in muslin soaking in it. Taking in doses daily of a certain prescribed quantity, and the thread was measured daily, thrice, I believe, to see if she was being cured or the reverse. Should the yarn shorten, it was a sign of death. If it lengthened, it indicated a recovery. However, although the yarn in this case lengthened, the young woman died. The charm failed. Sufficient has been said about charms to show how prevalent faith in their efficiency was. Ailments of all descriptions had their accompanying antidotes, but it is singularly strange that people professing the Christian religion should cling so tenaciously to paganism and its forms, so that even in our own days, such absurdities as charms find a resting place in the minds of our rustic population. And often, even the better educated classes resort to charms for obtaining cures for themselves and their animals. But from ancient times, omens, charms, and auguries have held considerable sway over the destinies of men. That charming book, Plutarch's Lives, abounds with instances of this kind. Indeed, an excellent collection of ancient folklore could easily be compiled. Enjoy your lurk, sugar, my darling! Lovely to see you! Where was I? My brain just went whoop. Okay. Indeed, an excellent collection of ancient folklore could easily be compiled from excellent classical authors. Most things die hard, and ideas that have once made a lodgment in the mind of man, particularly when they are connected in any way with his faith, die the very hardest of all. Thus it is that such beliefs are as treated of in this chapter still exist, and they have reached our days from distant periods, filtered somewhat in their transit, but still retaining their primitive qualities. That is my love, Bunny Bay. That is my love. I hope you like my love, Bunny. Don't disrespect my love. Don't you disrespect my love. That gif speaks on so many levels. There's my love. So what's a place like you do? Shit. No, wait, that's not it. So my Chozo, so my darling. It's not horrifying. That's insulting, Bunny. I worked hard to pick that gif out. I worked hard to pick out that lovely gif to show you how much I love you all. That is the dragon's love. What I do when you're sleeping, yo. So my Chozo, how are you, honey? Welcome on in. So my. The heart with its tongue seems a bit... No. You're the one making it weird. Not weird. Everybody else loves the heart. Everybody else loves my love gif. How dare? How dare? Hey, the gig. Shut your mouth. There you go. That's another Welsh thing for you. You can tell people to shut their mouth in Welsh now. You go, Kai the gig. Yeah, that's right. You go back to drawing. Otherwise, I'll make you go to sleep. We have not as yet gathered together the fragments of the ancient religions of the Celts and formed of them a consistent whole. But evidently, we are to look for them in the sayings and doings of the people quite as much as in the writings of the ancients. If we could only ascertain what views were held respecting any particular matter in ancient times, we might undoubtedly find traces of them even in modern days. Let us take, for instance, only one subject, and see whether traces of it still exist. Caesar in his commentaries states of the Druids that one of their principal maxims is that the soul never dies, but that after death it passes into the body of another being. The maxim they consider to be of the greatest utility to encourage virtue and to make them regardless of life. We see. Honestly, the Welsh flag is the most medieval banner looking thing I've ever seen live. I am so glad you enjoy our Welsh flag. That means a lot. I adore that flag so much. Been hard at work on my commissions. I have them finish both this same week. Oh my god, I can't wait to see how they turn out, dude. You're getting so... Oh god, I can't speak. You're improving so much in your work. I fucking love it. I love seeing everybody's art, though. Now, is there anything that can be associated with such teaching still to be found? The various tales previously given of hags turning themselves and others into various kinds of animals prove that people believed that such transitions were in life possible, and they had only to go a step further and apply the same faith to the soul, and we arrive at the transmigration of souls. It's got a fucking dragon. What's not to love about it? I know, right? Dragons are fucking cool. It is not my intention to make too much of the following tale, for it may be only a shred, but still as such it is worthy of record. A few years ago I was staying at the rectory, Erbistock near Rhuaben, and the rector, the Reverend P.W. Sparling, in course of conversation, said that a parishioner, one Betsy Roberts, told him that she knew before anyone told her that a certain person died at such and such a time. The rector asked how she came to know of the death if no one had informed her, and if she had not been to the house to ascertain the fact. Her answer was, I knew because I saw a hare come from towards his house and cross over the road before me. This was about all that the rector could elicit, but evidently the woman connected the appearance of the hare with the death of the man. The association of the live hare with the dead man was here a fact, and possibly in the birthplace of that woman such a connection of ideas was common. Furthermore, it has often been told me by people who have professed to have heard what they related, that being present in the death chamber of a friend, they have heard a bird singing beautifully outside in the darkness, and that it stopped immediately on the death of their friend. Here again we have a strange connection between two forms of life, and can this be a lingering druidic or other ancient faith? In the Dictionary of the Welsh Language by the Reverend Canon Sylvan Evans, Part 1, page 8, under the word abred, we have an exhaustive statement on the subject of transmigration, which I will take the liberty to transcribe, for it certainly throws light on the matter now treated of. Abred. 1. The state or condition through which, by a regular upward gradation, all animated beings pass from the lowest point of existence, which they originate, towards humanity and the highest state of happiness and perfection. All the states of animation below that of humanity are necessarily evil. In the state of humanity, good and evil are equally balanced, and in all the states above humanity, good preponderates and evil becomes impossible. If man, as a free agent, attaches himself to evil, he falls in death into such an animal state of existence as corresponds with the turpitude of his soul, which may be so great as to cast him down onto the lowest point of existence, from which he shall again return through such a succession of animal existences as it is most proper to divest him of his evil propensities. After traversing such a course, he will gain rise to the probationary state of humanity, where according to contingencies he may rise or fall, yet, should he fall, he shall rise again. And should this happen for millions of ages, the path of happiness is still open to him, will so remain to an eternity, for sooner or later he will infallibly arrive at his destined state of happiness, from which he can never fall. This doctrine and will so remain to all eternity. For sooner or later, I did that bit. This doctrine of metamorphosis or evolution, attributed to the Druids and the Welsh bards, succinctly but fully stated by its hierophant, Iolo, he is called Iolo, Morganwg, in his Poems 1974, Volume 2, pages 195 to 256, and allocated by documents which had not previously been made public, of which none are of an early date. The problem with older religions is that the older they are, the blurrier the line between elements of the religion and just local folklore art. Indeed. Thus writes the Welsh lexicographer on this matter. The word of bread is archaic, as is the idea for which it stands. But as already said, very little has been lost of ideas which were once the property of kindred races. So here we have no exception to the general rule. To the word abred, and the theory is it represented, come down to modern times strengthless, resembling the lifeless mummy of an Egyptian king that once represented a living people in principle. Still, the world and the idea it stands for having descended in form to our days and tell us something about the faith of our forefathers regarding the immortality of the soul. Oh my god. Reminds me of the way the Buddhist hells work, where people go for an unfathomable long but finite amount of time, come back to Earth and try again. I honestly do like learning about it, you know. Oh my goodness. I will be popping this at a standstill where we are. Let me pop over because we have ended a lovely segment which I can continue next week with you guys, which is about Romanta or omen seeking. So that's going to be super, super awesome. We are going to be hanging out with the darling Kage today. So tomorrow I will be over on Black-Maned Lion's channel doing some more of our Dark Deity. We're enjoying the voice acting for that. But I want to thank absolutely everybody for stopping by today. Thank you everybody who has subbed to the channel today, who helped out on my throne, and of course to my darling daughter Kit and her raiders today. I really appreciated that today. We're gonna go over and enjoy a nice little party with Kage. He has a 40k follower celebration, so I want you guys to also go over there and show him so much fucking love. Thank you, Bunny. Of course. Remember to make sure to check out the YouTube where I put all my VODs and stuff if you've missed out. But I'd appreciate if you all went and gave Kage some love. Yeah, I will be over with Black-Maned Lion tomorrow for our collab stream. So I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you all for coming and supporting me. It really means a lot to me. I love you all and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your time zone. I'll see you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye bye now.